All right, here's something to ponder. Does happiness have a currency? We're exploring the brain science of wealth and well-being. So, is money the only currency of value in our world, or can happiness also become a form of global currency in which we invest and thrive? Our society continues to advance the misconception that money buys happiness and that money is the only valid form of currency on the planet. More recent research, however, in brain science and behavioral economics suggests the opposite. Happiness is actually a currency and the basis for experiencing long-lasting and authentic prosperity, wealth, and abundance in life. Okay, we're really going to explore this topic with Dr. J. Kumar, a regular contributor here at Live Happy. Now, as a renowned thought leader and public speaker, Dr. J. Kumar counsels organizations and businesses on harnessing the art and science of happiness for both short and long-term success. Dr. J is at the forefront of brain research as the co-founder of the Applied Brain Science Research Institute for Wealth and Well-Being. He holds a PhD in cognitive science and religious studies, an MA in international political economy, and a concentration in international business from Columbia University. Dr. J. Kumar, great to have you a part of this 24-hour happiness live stream.
It is so great to be part of this, Kim. I have been looking forward to this for a long time, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to spread some happiness on the planet.
So let's get right into this, your whole concept here of happiness being a currency. Explain that whole philosophy and the research behind that.
I'd love to, Kim. I like to start off with a quote that I like to share when I talk about this topic, and that quote is, "The power in the solution is equivalent to the courage behind the question." So I'm going to repeat that. The power in the solution is equivalent to the courage behind the question. Why I'm advancing this question is, why is it that we've always been told that money is the only form of valid currency in which we need to invest in and thrive and be the basis of our life? And I'm advocating something a little different, and that is this whole concept that we actually abound in different forms of currency in our life. So happiness is a currency. Time is a currency. Love is a currency. Compassion, altruism are all currencies of value that we take for granted, but that we need to really begin to explore more as the basis upon which we can invest, thrive, and build a prosperous society. And what I really begin to say is that there's nothing wrong inherently with wanting to have money. You've got it, I've got it. Plenty of everyone who's watching this, this live stream probably has it as well. But what I'm advocating is this. Money without meaning or wealth without values are aimless pursuits with regard to the brain in its ability to experience authentic happiness. And so what we're really showing in this whole idea of the currency of happiness, it's a double entendre, if you will. The currency of happiness is the currency in which we can exchange and we can begin to barter. We can begin to use happiness as this means in which we give and we take happiness. And guess what? The more we invest in happiness, the more we invest in humanity.
Yeah, you know what's fascinating about this as you're saying this, it made me think about all kinds of areas of leadership. When I think about, really playing Little League as a little kid, and I remember there was this guy named Stan who was this unbelievable ball player in our Little League team. And no money exchanged, right? No money. Yep. But he was an incredible leader. He inspired us because he practiced hard and he hit home runs and he did all these kinds of things. Money wasn't a part of that. Or think about anything, any sports activity or people who do things just out of passion, right? Whether it be knitting or sewing or dress or whatever. But it is so interesting that everything seems to get funneled down to, all right, what kind of cash am I bringing in? It is a necessary part of of the economy that keeps things moving. But it's very expansive, your notion here around how we look at currency and the value we put on all in these other areas.
Yeah, no, that really is the gist of the point, Kim, that you stated so eloquently, is that our society for the longest time, for millennia, have been telling us that, or at least maybe our Western society for a few hundred years, have been advocating this misconception that the pursuit of life is about money. And in the institute that I co-founded, the Applied Brain Science Research Institute for Wealth and Well-Being, we begin to counsel organizations, institutions, corporate structures, wealth managers, financial advisors, but even the general public on this idea is that money is nothing more than a vehicle or a means in which to find happiness, in which to pursue your dreams and passion. And so I want to kind of, why I'm so passionate about this topic is it really begins to marry, bring together three of my academic pursuits. So looking at the brain in brain research, looking at religion and spirituality, but also bringing in my degree in international political economics and economic theory and behavioral economics, and just seeing that we can begin to actually the courage behind the question is equivalent to the power in the solution. This idea is that let's start asking this courageous question. I would really enjoy that everyone listening to this and be participating in this Live Happy 24-hour live stream begin to just thrive and begin to see happiness as a currency. And it costs no money. Think about this, Kim. What are some of the happiest moments in your life? Can you think of one? On top of your head, what's one of the happiest moments in your life?
I can think of many. I mean, really. My first apartment, and my wife and I just grilling out some hot dogs with no furniture in the place.
Yeah.
But just, the beauty and just the being together, I mean, it's just that simple. Being in that moment together and sharing. That was a happy moment for me, even though I was broke.
Yes, right? So here's the thing. We're told, incorrectly that money equals happiness. And so let's follow this in a logical way, okay? Let's use some logic and see why this is not correct. If we're told that money equals happiness, what about all the famous and wealthy actors, athletes, musicians, politicians who are part of what I call the growing class of the unhappy rich?
Yeah.
And conversely, if you follow that logic that money equates to happiness, what about are you automatically saying that people who don't have money are not happy?
Right.
Right. It doesn't make sense. You've probably traveled around the world, I'm sure, and you may have. Or for those of you who are maybe listening to this around the globe, maybe you live in a country where there's extreme poverty, or maybe people aren't living the same don't have the same standard of living that we may have here in the West. But you know what? I recently came back from a month-long trip to Asia. I was in 6 different countries in Asia for about 3.5 weeks. And many people there do not have the same level of income, the same standard of living that we're accustomed to here in the United States. But you know what? They are far more happy than many people I come across here in Los Angeles, let me tell you. And so it just underscores this idea is that happiness is a currency in itself. And I'm going to share with you in a little more detail why that is using the brain science. But I want to share with you one really great piece of research which came out in 2011. A behavioral economist looked at this notion of happiness. And he did a study. He looked at the United States from the period of 1945, so after World War II, to the year 2000. He looked at the level of wealth in our American culture, in our American society. The level of wealth and the level of prosperity in our country in the past 50 years has tripled. Okay, so it has tripled in terms of its level. Like there's a 300% increase in the level of wealth in this country since 1945. But guess what? The level of happiness has stayed flat the entire time. It has not gone up. And so it really, really emphasizes this really important concept that this whole misconception that money gets happiness.
Yeah, and why do you think that is? Do you think it's just that consumerism, that the whole notion of more, that we're just inundated with that? I know, listen, Jay, I know from my advertising background, I mean, our whole job, I used to tell my kids this, as a matter of fact. I used to say to them, you have to understand, guys, I said, when you're sitting here and you're watching television, and I was on the advertising side, our job is to keep you at that TV. Our job, if we're doing our job right, is just to take control of your thinking. So you don't want to leave that table. You don't want to leave that, leave your seat. Yeah. So you're watching every single commercial, and then you go out and you buy this and you buy that and you buy all these things because that's what we're here to do. We're here to take that over.
And there's really I love this is where my passion and in what I do in the brain research, but also religion, spirituality, and economics all come into play. I think in advertising, specifically in advertising in our Western society, the entire premise of advertising is to make you unhappy.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm really, but when it boils
To
down
feel less
to
than, right? I mean, really to feel insecure, to feel less than, you don't have this. If
less
you're the
than.
cool person, you're going to be driving that car, right?
Yeah, and there's a really great if I love to maybe bring this concept in because I know we have many people probably watching this in perhaps in Asia and Asian countries where Buddhism might be a prominent form of religion, or Hinduism for that matter as well. And what we're discovering in the Eastern tradition, specifically in Buddhism, there's this term called dukkha, and it's spelled Duhkha, and it translates something as suffering. But it's really, when you really look at the nuance of that word in English, it translates as dissatisfaction. Our American culture, and maybe our Western society, our consumer-driven society, put it that way, our consumer-driven society, which is global nowadays, is based on this idea that you need to be dissatisfied with what you currently have. Yeah,
Right. Dissatisfied with what you currently have. And always, it seems, always reaching for the next, oh, you did that, let's go to the next better thing. Right.
Right. So we this is something I know we've talked about before. Live happy, that that money, success, fame, status, for that matter, are the currencies that we tend to value in our society. And guess what? This is where the brain science research comes into play, which I want to maybe emphasize a little more now as I talk about this topic. This idea is that the brain science research is actually showing something quite remarkable, and that is this. They've actually done a study in 2011 here at Caltech, not too far from me here in Los Angeles. They did a study in Caltech in 2011 where they were able to actually isolate a specific area in the brain that correlates to our fear around money. And this part of the brain is called the amygdala. And I'm not trying to get too science-oriented, for our listeners here, but this is an important topic I really want to maybe emphasize. It stresses the idea of how much of a control money has on our lives. They've isolated this part of the brain called the amygdala, where we have our fears around money, maybe not having enough money, or maybe trying to maintain our money, or how to pass on our money to our kids, whatever. There's this anxiety and fear around money, and they're able to isolate this area in the brain called the amygdala. Here's the remarkable thing, Kim. That same part of the brain called the amygdala is the part of our brain that also governs our fight or flight response, our stress response.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a built-in mechanism in our brain that governs our ability to escape real danger, to escape real threats to our life, called a fight or flight response, a stress response. Fear around money triggers that exact same mechanism, those exact same mechanisms in our brain. This is a built-in, it's almost like money equates to survival for many of us. And go ahead.
No, well, I have to ask you. So, yeah. No matter where you are, because I've noticed there's this I know to be very true too. That, whether it be we get the starter home, we move to the next house. Oh, this is great. One day, honey, we'll get this other bigger house. One day, honey, we'll get the other bigger house. Right? It's constant kind of accumulation of always striving. And then I guess at some point, for many of us, you do get enlightened. At some point, you do realize, you know what, this is not giving me emotionally what I thought it was going to give me. I mean, that's what the science shows, right? That this constant kind of adding to or thinking that this is going to do it when we find out that didn't do it. But listen, what I don't want to make light of, and I know you don't either, and that is there is a major play that money has here. I mean, there is a. Can you talk a little bit about what I've heard to be the science behind a $75,000 household income compared to a multi-million-dollar household income, that we find that the science or the happiness, there's very little change. Can you speak to that?
I would really enjoy doing that because this is actually something I stress in my university courses that I teach, but also too when I speak in public. Studies have come out and actually shown that in our American culture, let's take the American dollar, American society and the U.S. dollar. They've actually shown that the average of person, a family, who makes $75,000 a year, is no more happy or less happy than someone who's a multimillionaire.
Yes.
And let's explore what I want to go into the brain science behind this, because this is where it gets really juicy, if you will. It kind of gets really exciting about how to look at this in a different frame. I make a distinction between money versus abundance. Okay?
Yes.
Really important. Money is not the same as abundance. Money is a very specific form of abundance called monetary abundance. And money correlates to the part of our brain, our survival brain, our caveman brain, our Neanderthal brain, which is all about fear of survival or survival issues, if you will. Money, what they're showing, the allure that money has, triggers the same mechanisms in the brain that pleasure does, or pleasure mechanisms. So you wonder. So this is a good example. People who gamble, okay. People who gamble have this part of their brain that is wired to be addicted to money. Whether trying to gamble or kind of even people who invest all the time. There's this mechanism that correlates to the pleasure and withdrawal mechanisms in our brain. And this part of the brain, the pleasure withdrawal mechanisms that where money also our issues around money also reside, are part of our primitive brain, our what we call our surviving brain. Abundance, on the other hand, correlates to what I call our thriving brain, which is the more recently evolved part of our brain. So it's the higher brain, if you will. So it's almost like money is about surviving, abundance is about thriving.
Yes.
That's what it really is. And so let's take this back and maybe kind of integrate this back into what we were talking about this topic, the currency of happiness. Abundance is a currency. The currency really is abundance. Okay? And I want the question I really love to ask all of our viewers is, in what ways does abundance manifest in your life? Not monetary abundance. In what ways does abundance happen in your relationships, in your family? Do you have emotional abundance? Do you have spiritual abundance? Do you have psychological abundance? Do you have creative abundance? We're also finding that time is actually a currency. What's the point of having all this money if you have no time to enjoy it?
Right.
Right? So we look at this idea, this is where I just get so excited and thrilled about bringing all these, what were once like really different topics, like, neuroscience research, religious studies, behavioral economics, and see where they begin to coincide. And this really is the foundation about what I do in my institute, the Applied Brain Science Research Institute for Wealth and Wellbeing, is really begin to underscore this idea that we now need to advance a new paradigm. And that paradigm is the following, that there are different currencies of value in our life. Happiness is one of those. And that when you begin to make happiness as a currency which you trade in, which you thrive, which you invest in, we all win. No one loses out. There's no in our idea, like, in our concept behind money, there's always winners and losers. Okay, there's always going to be some people there's only a finite amount of money in the world, right? But guess what? There's an infinite amount of happiness in the world, and it all comes from within us. And so when we begin to see happiness as currency, we have an infinite, foundation upon which we can thrive and invest. I love to say this phrase: invest in happiness, invest in humanity.
Let me ask you, because of the students, because of your program, I know you've got, if not the, it is one of the most popular courses at Chapman University, right, on happiness there.
Yeah.
How do you ever get challenged by the students? I'm just curious, because students come from all walks of life, right, especially on this topic around money. Those of us that have been fortunate and have accumulated money and we've come to learn, many of us have come to learn, and that the things, the items and all that don't fulfill you. And boy, you allow there to be a health incident, and all of a sudden, nothing matters to you like your good health. But what do you say to students? What do you say to people who say, Dr. J, you really don't understand me? I mean, I'm struggling financially. My credit card debt's crazy. I've got all of this bills. I got student debt. What do you say to them to help them to navigate through that as it relates to happiness and fulfillment and changing their mind set? Because let me just say this. I can't imagine that when you're swirling around with that, you're swirling around with all the things that are creating that flight, right? That fear and flight within you, the ripple effect of that. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So, what I'm going to say is this. I'm going to answer this question, but I like to always, I'm going to say this in a quote, if you will. If you believe that money is the only valuable currency in your life, you're sadly living a very impoverished life. And it's not that we need to deny the fact that we need money. And I definitely know, myself included, I've been in situations in my life where I've struggled financially and where I've had to, have panic around money. But here's the thing, and students especially, many of my students that I teach in our happiness course probably have student debt, credit card, their student loans or credit card debt, and they're concerned about, their future. But here's what I tell them. When it really boils down to it, at the end of your life, are you, knowing that this might be a temporary situation, and even in this moments of panic and fear around money, and this might be the case for even many of our viewers, maybe if finances might be a bit of a struggle. And I'm not going to wave a magic wand and kind of, erase all those financial concerns. But here's the thing to understand and really underscore. What really is the important consideration is to recognize all those things in your life, all those factors, all those aspects of your life that you're grateful for, that you have a sense of gratitude around, a sense of knowing that regardless of what your credit card statement is going to be this month or what your bank account statement is going to be this month, you have this foundation, and it can be relationships, it can be your family, it can be going out in nature, it can be remembering all the things that are working in your favor. And we talked about this before, but it's something I'd love to share with you today.
I also let me just say, I like what you just said, all the things that are working in your favor. You have to be able to, that is a great pause in our thinking as people, that no matter what you're going through, it's like one of my good buddies said, he said that bad is never good until worse happens. Okay. and so to be able to take pause and stock of the things that are working right, the things that are going good for you, that your legs are working. But continue on with that. But I did not want to just skip right over that. I think take stock.
It's a really important point, and I want to underscore that in a little more in another way. Is that again tying this into the brain science? We have this aspect we discovered this aspect about the brain. By the way, we've learned more about the human brain in the past 15 years than we have in the past 1,500 years. And due to the advent of medical technology and sophisticated machinery, we can now look into the brain in real time, which we couldn't do before. So this is why brain science is really this exciting, new, really pioneering field of study. And one thing we're discovering about the brain has this natural mechanism called the negativity bias. What that means is that the brain actually holds on to negative experiences more strongly than positive ones. And so the catchphrase you probably heard before, the brain is like Velcro for negative thoughts and Teflon for positive ones.
Yeah, repeat that, please. I love that.
And this is not my quote. I've heard it being said before. The brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and like Teflon for positive experiences.
Right.
We hold on to negative experiences more strongly, almost 5 times more strongly than positive ones, according to the research. This is a built-in evolutionary strategy of the brain to remember bad experiences for survival. But the thing is, and this is the detriment behind negativity bias. While the negativity bias is key for human survival, it also hinders us from experiencing happiness. And so what we have to do, and one thing I share with my students in my university course on happiness, is the important idea to write down, to remember 5 things in your life that you're grateful for today. I know you and I do this. We wake up every morning. I wake up every morning and remind myself of 5 things I'm grateful for. It could be my family, the fact that I have great students. I love to teach. I live in a beautiful, part of LA. I have my health. I have great relationships. All those things I'm grateful for. And so when you begin to cultivate the positive, when you begin to increase the positive, if you will, this now mitigates, it kind of dampens that part of the brain, that survival brain, the fight or flight mechanism. And it kind of puts into perspective, issues around money, issues around finances. Not saying they're going to disappear, but your response to them changes. One thing I'm noticing in the research that I've done, I like to say that fear around money creates a sad person, SAD, a sad person. Fear around money causes stress, anger, or disengagement. So the sad person, SAD, fear around money, we respond to it either with stress, or with anger, or with just being disengaged. We don't care about it, and all of these are detrimental to our happiness. And so there's a great quote by the poet Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, the medieval. I just thought about this quote by Jalaluddin Rumi, who's the Sufi poet from the Middle Ages. He has this quote that says, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love."
Wow. Repeat that again. I love that.
Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love. And it really boils down to this, something so profoundly simple. At the end of the day, at the end of our life, it really is about how much happiness and love we experienced, how much we generate in the world. Again, how much currency of happiness did you give and take in this world? And, ultimately, it's this wonderful idea that we abound in happiness. Like, happiness is this sea in which we swim in. But some of us are so, maybe we're swimming against the current, if you will. But we just realize once you let go, you kind of just float in the sea of happiness. And this idea is this, and it's all being supported by neuroscience research and behavioral economics, is that when you begin to experience or have happiness be the foundation of your life, this is now the means in which you get to use your money, you get to use your finances in a way that advances what you really love. As Rumi said, let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love.
So, Dr. J, so let's talk for a moment about, as people are watching this and listening to this, and I know there are people that are picking up the phone or texting their friends and saying, "Oh, you got to watch this live stream, this 24-hour live stream. Go to livehappy.com to watch this." Now, what drives a lot of this too is it's very natural for us. Let's call us, all of us that are engaged in this, the happy people, the people that are on board with happiness. I want more happiness in my life. They're hearing now the science, because that's what we're all about. We're really about saying that, hey, not only is this a good thing to do, it's a smart thing to do, and there's science to back this up, because the research behind this is massive and is continuing to grow. But the natural inclination is, I want my negative or my unhappy so-and-so to watch this. I want them to get this. What's your philosophy about that? About the whole notion of, I want to make someone else happy. I want to help them. I'm fine, but I want to help them get happier, because my significant other is not as happy as they need to be. What do you say to that?
Yeah. Well, there are many factors that might be contributing to a person's unhappiness. There could be biological, could be depression, could be, things that we may not be aware of. But I'll say this: the work that I do in the human brain really fundamentally looks at the human brain in a very specific and very unique way. For the longest time, we've kind of seen the brain as a thinking organ, an emotional organ, a rational organ, a cognitive organ, if you will. But what I really do is look at the brain as a social organ. Looking at the brain as a social organ, and that the brain actually, the research I'm doing is looking at the brain primarily how it evolved as a social organ. And that we are wired, our brains are wired to connect with other people. And when we don't have that social connection, the brain kind of goes into panic. The brain kind of goes into what I call social deregulation. And we try, and it becomes panicked. And this leads to our ability to experience more sadness or depression or anxiety in the world. So one of the most wonderful and remarkable pieces of research come out in brain science. Well, there are many, so here's one of them. They've actually shown that if you want to make someone happy, like your partner, your wife, or your kids, or your best friend, or someone's going through to a tough time, just be with them, be there for them. And we're discovering that experiences generate greater degrees of happiness than buying products or things. So, so let's say you've got a person who's really not doing well in your life, and rather than maybe just, sending them a card or maybe sending them flowers, call them, take them out for a hike in nature, because this is where we begin to experience that connection, that social connection. And it's really about connectivity. One thing I do in the corporate world when I talk to my corporate clients about how to engage more happiness in the workforce or in their productivity or in their line of work, I tell them, what? It's not only about the transaction, it's about the interaction. And when we begin to interact with others, when we begin to spread happiness to others, eventually they're going to feel it. That's how the brain works. We know this. This is not some magic or something I'm just kind of fabricating. We're showing in the research laboratory, in all the brain science research, we're fundamentally driven by the need to feel valued, belonged, and engaged. That really is it. We want to feel valued, belonged, and engaged. And one of those, when one of those three needs are not met, the social brain, which I'm advocating, goes into deregulation, and we begin to experience panic or fear or depression or anxiety, or maybe we compensate by going out and buying a new pair of shoes. Some people do, I don't know, or maybe going out and buying a new smartphone to compensate for that. But it's not about things. It's not about products. It's about people. And ultimately, what gives us the greatest level of happiness, according to all the latest neuroscience research, is wanting to engage in experiences with others. Yeah. And this ties in to this idea that I really want to share, and it was something which is the core of this talk. Happiness can be that currency in which we share, we take value, we take stock in. I would love for there to be like a stock market for happiness. I'd love for there to be like a happiness gets traded on the stock market. Yeah. And we begin to see the happy acts that we're doing here with Live Happy. That's a currency. I want you, all of you who are doing the happy acts, to know you're investing in the currency of happiness as you do that. And our students at Chapman University have made this wonderful video on happiness called "A Sense of Happiness at Chapman." And when we made that video, we were doing the footage for it. We were having the time of our life.
Yes,
we were just laughing. I have 45 students in that class, which I co-teach, and we took a day off from class and just went outside. It was a beautiful day. Luckily we live in Southern California, and so it was a beautiful 75-degree day. And we went outside and just spent the entire hour and 15 minutes of class being happy. And you're going to see this video. It's already as part of the Live Happy live stream. All my students came up to me later on and said, "Oh my God, Dr. Kumar, this is the most fun I've had here all semester." At university, I've been so stressed. We so needed this, and what it was is that it was a social experience. We were doing something together, and we were investing in this currency of happiness. And ultimately, it's really just about knowing that happiness can be this form of exchange. It can be a form in which we begin to invest in. And you've heard me say this probably before. When it really comes down to it, no matter how stressed or overwhelmed or how struggle life may appear to be, the universe is always conspiring for our greatest joy and happiness. And when we understand that joy and happiness are built into the brain, The universe wants us to have this. This can be something we now trade in. Just doing this interview, I think for me is a currency of happiness. And being able to share it with all of you and all of the viewers out there, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I have to, and I concur with you. I think too that one of the things that has me the most excited about this is the research pointing out the impact that a happy, positive brain, positive emotions has in everything you do. Let me just give you an example. And I know you know these numbers, but you're 3 times more creative. They've been able to measure that a happy, positive brain is 3 times more creative. You're in sales. You want to see your sales numbers go up. That a happy, positive emotion-laden brain, right? 37% increase in sales. We're showing a reduction in stress by 23%. Better health by 39%. I mean, these are real numbers that are being tracked around the impact that positivity, approaching things, and how quickly you rebound. And we all know this. You're not going to. Being happy is not going to insulate you from being unhappy. You're going to have moments, days, times in your life when you're going to feel really down. But the fact that you can rebound, right, doctor? It brings you back faster. It helps you recover faster.
It does. It's almost like we can build this trampoline, if you will, in our brain, where every time we kind of go down, we come back up again. And there's this whole concept in the neuroscience research that that states that just like little small acts make a difference. One thing I want to show you one other bit of research data, which is also alarming, which kind of ties into what you're saying. In the corporate world, they've discovered that unhappy employees or disengaged or kind of unhappy, miserable employees cost on average $500 billion in lost revenue for American companies every year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Half
$500 billion get lost every year for unhappy employees at work. And it's almost the idea is that, you've heard of PTSD.
Yes.
I call it something called OTSD, office time stress disorder.
Office time stress disorder.
OTSD.
Yeah.
And so we suffer, a lot of us, probably suffer from OTSD, office time stress disorder. But here are some ways we can counter this. It's really about the small things that matter. When you're at work, or when you're at school, or when you're at the park, or when you're driving down the street, whatever, or walking on the street, something as small as a smile, something as a hello, a thank you, is powerful beyond measure. There's a hidden power unleashed every time you say thank you, every time you smile, every act of kindness, every happy act. It's not only the extraordinary actions, but the small ones, the everyday small ones. They make you powerful and make you powerful beyond measure, make the world a happier place.
So, Dr. J, we've got people obviously all over the world that are tuned into our 24 Hours of Happiness. And with us coming to the conclusion of our discussion, is there something that you want them to, as far as making happiness a currency? But I'd like for you to give a summary statement around things that that we can do when this 24-hour happiness live stream is over. Where people are learning so many new things. But what are some things that you want people to know or be aware of as we go forward until the next time we all come together? Obviously, you've got to get a subscription to Live Happy magazine. You're contributing to our great content. But so it's one thing you could do. But what would you suggest that we focus on as we move forward?
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that as well, I also have a free gift available for everyone listening as part of this live stream. If you go to drjkumar.com/livehappy, you can download, it's a free download, it's a free gift to all of you, the 10 Truths for Happiness. As well as my ebook, Brain, Body, and Being, The 5 Secrets for Authentic Health and Habits on Amazon, both of which offer great tools for health and well-being and happiness. But I'd like to share with you a story. And I said this story before. I think it's really worth repeating, and it really is going to encapsulate. And then I'm going to give us some specific examples of how we can just how we can begin to invest in this currency of happiness. So here's this way I kind of like to explain this whole new paradigm we're moving into around happiness. For the longest time, we were told that, many people believed that the earth was the center of the universe. No one questioned it. It was just like the standard, matter of fact saying that everyone just believed that the Earth was the center of the solar system around which the sun, all the planets revolved. And if you questioned it, if you went and just quite tried to say differently, you were probably persecuted. At worst, you're probably killed. But no one believed you. But science came along, and astronomers came along, and based on observation, realized, you know what? Something actually doesn't feel right over here. Something doesn't quite fit. If we take this model and flip it around and say, wait a minute, the sun is the center of the solar system around which all the planets revolve, everything makes sense. Then the mathematics work out, the calculations work out, everything just works out properly. But guess what? We have something similar taking place in the field of happiness and even money. Our society for the past several centuries have been telling us money is the center of the solar system. Money is the center of our lives, around which happiness, prosperity, joy, and abundance revolve around. It's time, and now science is coming along in the same way that science disproved that the Earth is the center of the solar system and how the sun is the center of the solar system. Brain science is coming along, as well as behavioral economics, for that matter, are coming along and saying the following. Happiness is the center of our solar system, around which money, health, well-being, prosperity revolve around. And so here are some, so think about this. Happiness is the sun. Money is the earth. Money revolves around happiness. Earth revolves around the sun, not the other way around. But it took some time for people to kind of realize that scientific fact was no longer accurate. In the same way, I would like to say in this century, if not maybe, let's say, hopefully in this millennium, but hopefully even in this century, I am advocating that we need to make happiness a currency. We need to make happiness the center of our lives, the center of our solar system, around which everything revolves around. And when you do this, so here's some ways to begin to do this. Wake up every morning and think about and write down or just kind of think in your mind 5 things that make you happy, or 5 things you're grateful for, or maybe one thing in your day that's going to make you happy, or even better. I love this. Wake up as part of the happy acts, as part of what we're doing here. For 1 week, every day for 1 week, you have to invest. The way you're going to make happiness a currency is you have to go out and make one other person happy. It doesn't have to be having to buy them like dinner or buying them, or whatever, something that even costs money. So here's the catch. You're going to have to make one person every day for a week happy that doesn't cost you any money. Let's do that. That's how we begin to invest in this currency of happiness. So for me, it's smiling. I love to smile. I'm a happy person. What can I say? I smile at people all the time. And that makes people happy. Opening the door for someone, just being polite and saying, opening the door for someone saying, hey, how are you? Something even as simple as saying thank you to the people at the cash register at the supermarket. Little things like that. It's these small acts. We don't have to do these grandiose acts. We don't have to be the Rosa Parks or the Mahatma Gandhis, of the world to increase happiness. We do it in these small everyday acts. So perhaps what we do is, as we do this International Day of the global 24-hour live stream, the International Day of Happiness, is make one person every day for a week happy that doesn't cost any money. Let's see if we can bypass this currency of money and really begin to instill and generate this currency of happiness.
Yeah, I love that. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure that you guys know that his ebook, 5 Secrets to Achieving Authentic Health and Happiness, is available at Amazon.com. And as Dr. J. Kumar, Kumar, Chapman University. I mean, just, what a gift. I've got immense gratitude for for your wisdom and your time. And this is a special time for us, Dr. J. When I can't not be thinking about, as a society, that we carved out 24 hours where we could really bring mindfulness to thinking about happiness. And one of the cornerstones of this, and I hear it from you and all the people in the positive psychology industry, is gratitude, thankfulness, forgiveness, humility, compassion, all those things. And they cost nothing. They cost nothing.
It costs nothing. And it's really fundamentally this idea is that the greatest gift we can ever offer to someone else is our love, our compassion, and our happiness. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about how much happiness you generate in the world, and really begin to just understand that happiness. There are no external conditions for happiness. Happiness is who we truly are. And when we begin to understand and begin to live happy, and when we begin to, I'll say, you said this earlier, we're creating a movement here.
We are.
We're creating a movement, and I feel that I'm honored to be part of this movement that all of you are doing here, Live Happy, and I'm doing it in my own way, in my institute, in my university courses that I teach, in the books that I write, even I post regularly on Twitter at Dr. J. Kumar on these ideas of happiness. And it underscores this idea that we're making this powerful shift.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
And you know what I like to say? The happiness shift just hit the fan.
Jeez, you're a poet and don't even know it. The happiness shift just hit the fan. That's great. Dr. J. Kumar, thank you. Thank you for being a part. And hey, as my sister always says, we'll keep the party going. We'll
Absolutely,
keep it going.
absolutely. And also, I'd love for all of you to experience, to enjoy my free gift at drjkumar.com/livehappy. And again, thank you so much, Kim. Let's all be happy and understand that happiness is our birthright.
Love it. Goodbye, Dr. J.
Thank you.